Earlier this year, I subscribed to EA Access, not Game Pass, just EA Access for something like $22 a year. It was a great deal. Gave me the opportunity to play some Need for Speed games that I wanted to try out that I thought maybe weren't worth buying. And the first one that I played was Need for Speed Heat. It has a cool day and night cycle system where at night you're out racing the cops and during the day you're doing different events. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was fun. A lot of people hail this as being the best current Need for Speed game. They kind of tear it out as though Need for Speed Payback was okay, but Need for Speed Heat brought the gameplay to another level. Now, Need for Speed Payback I thought was really just a similar game done worse and including microtransactions. What I found when I actually took the time to play this game is that it really is worthy of being a greatest hits game on the PlayStation 4. I was surprised to see this game sold that well. I know at one time it was given away for PlayStation Plus. It was free game of the month. A lot of people probably got it that way, but this thing did move enough units to become a greatest hits game. And it is oftentimes available relatively cheaply for that reason. When I see it go on sale, at least on Xbox, it's usually about $7. I think that's kind of around the going price at GameStop for a used copy. So keep in mind, this is an inexpensive racing game and an arcade racing game at that's very easy to pick up and play. I'm not somebody that's really invested into is the car handling correctly in comparison to its real life counterpart. How is the cornering? If the game's fun to play, it's fun to play. I enjoy Mario Kart just like I enjoy this all the same, and ultimately if it controls well enough, I'm not super obsessed with the realism of the cars because again, I understand I'm playing an arcade racer. Like Heat, Payback puts you in an open world with a variety of different car types. 5 different car types. In fact, you'll want to at least own one vehicle of each one in order to make your way through the game's story mode. We'll get into the story mode in a second, but each of these car types is diverse and does play a different role and is only acceptable for different events. So if you don't have an off-road type car, you'll need to buy one in order to do the off-road events. I believe it was the same way in Heat, but the reason why Need for Speed has appealed to me as a franchise is the fact that you can upgrade any of these cars and make them viable for both the beginning of the game and the end game as time goes on. Of course, in Heat, I did that by simply just buying the best parts that were available to me. Payback, though, does not have a traditional progression system in the fact that constantly new parts become available to you to purchase. Instead, parts are earned through just random releases at the end of every story event. When you complete a story event, which are repeatable, you will earn a part card. You can also use points from the part cards that you don't want or that are duplicates in order to recycle them to get slot machine spins, essentially, in order to get other part cards. The part card system obviously lends itself very well to microtransactions. I did not consider this to be something that got in my way of enjoying the game. It wasn't something that obviously 5 years later I needed to buy any part cards, because when you're talking about a game this old, microtransactions are not going to be something somebody's going to want to delve into actually paying for at this point in time. And I think that the random nature and release of these cards kind of kept me actually getting a custom feel to the car, because I wasn't just simply picking the card with the highest number, because I didn't always necessarily have access to that, and the cards also came in different brands where using different brands could yield you a bonus. So there was a little bit of strategy in just kind of looking at what cards you happen to randomly have and kind of just working with the hand you were dealt. I think that's an interesting aspect to a racing game that we don't often see, because usually I'm just trying to chase the best number, the best performance, and that's not something I did in Need for Speed Payback because of the random nature in which the cards were released. I know it's surprising to hear somebody kind of applauding a system of this random RNG element being injected into progression, but it actually made it be more enjoyable for me. This map, which has a lot of a rural desert feel to it, which I think is really cool that it's not entirely in the city like it felt like the majority of Heat's map was, has got a ton of things littered all over the place for you to do. Of course, there's billboards to knock down, speed traps, different drift events just littered throughout the world that you can do in a split second, and that's something that we saw in other Need for Speed games and has been around in the franchise and other racing games like Forza for quite some time, these just random events. I liked how when you completed some of these random events a certain amount of times, you did some weird objectives like jumping 100 feet or something like that with a car, it would unlock different visual customization aspects, so they weren't all necessarily needing to be purchased, or some of them needed to have a challenge completed before they were purchasable. And then there are also secondary challenges beyond just winning a race that would pop up when you were doing storyline events. They were side bets where you could kind of do like a 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6 wager on completing some sort of odd task during the challenge, where even if you were like really beefed up, overpowered for the storyline challenge for whatever reason, you'd also kind of have something else to go for, even if you were going to destroy the computer anyways. And maybe one of my favorite parts about Payback was that it kind of put a new spin on that whole concept that Forza has, where you're finding an old vehicle in a garage and you're able to recover it and add it to your inventory. Need for Speed Payback does that, but it makes me a little bit more involved and feel a lot more meaningful, because when you complete a leg of the storyline, it will give you a location on the map where you can find a derelict, which is essentially an old vehicle that's like just burned up, destroyed, and is completely inoperable. Once you find the old vehicle, it'll tell you the location for 4 different parts that the vehicle needs. You go to those locations on the map that are just kind of vaguely highlighted with some clues. You find those 4 parts and you're able to assemble a working vehicle, and from there you can upgrade it even further by completing challenges and doing other things with the vehicle. So it is a real long road to get a derelict from junked out all the way up to being usable, and it's not just as easy as just finding it one time. It really is a process. This is an open world racing game where I actually wanted to spend time in the world. I didn't want to fast travel everywhere because it just felt like the world was meaningfully diverse, and that wasn't necessarily something that was also being hampered by police, because the police are in this game, they appear in certain story events, but they are not present in the open world, and the fact that you can't get a heat meter going like you can in Need for Speed Heat. And that can sound like a bad thing. Essentially, this is just like the daytime side of Need for Speed Heat, because you couldn't get cops on you there either, but it actually is a big positive in my opinion, because to an extent they can be a nuisance. If you want to play a game with cops, play Need for Speed Heat, but if you're okay with missing out on them, Payback is a good way to go, and you'll just get a little bit of them in the story missions, which, by the way, at the end here, I have to mention the story. It's a story in a racing game. It's something that I don't really want to be there. I skipped most of the cutscenes. I didn't find enjoyable, but overall, I think that the cast is less annoying than the cast in Need for Speed Heat, which isn't saying much because they were all kind of really hyped up zoomers. Don't buy this game if you want a good story. Don't buy it if you want a realistic racer. But if you want to have fun in an open world with some cool car customization and really what I think is exciting progression, then Need for Speed Payback is worth a look even 5 years later. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.